Hey everyone, and welcome back to season 2 of Above the Tree Line. I almost said season 3 because I feel like we're getting close to that, but we are still, in fact, in season 2 right now. And it is my privilege to be able to introduce you to someone who is very integral to the ACF family, and that is our brand new worship leader, Mr. Brian Marzolf. Thank you for coming on, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
I didn't really ask you. I just told you, right? It was like, you're gonna come on the podcast because you're new here. You have fit right in. The people love you. The congregation loves you. And I wanted to hear more about your God story because you've referenced it some in like meetings and situations we've been in. And I'm like, there's something there that people can identify with. And there's something there that's going to point people to God. So we're going to start not at the very beginning, but first of all, I do want to ask you, when I first met you, you said you were from California.
Yeah, I am.
And that your accent does not match California.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not at all.
I've been told that on more than one occasion. So.
Okay, how long did you live in California?
I was born and raised in California until I was like, I left at 21.
There's no way.
College.
I was thinking you were there for like 3 years,
really?
and then you like moved somewhere to the south, like Oklahoma.
I do forget that Midwestern or Southern draw is there.
Okay.
I get reminded every time I go home to visit friends.
So not a native Texan, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We still welcome you with
thank
open
you so
arms.
much. Yeah. Texas is like a second home. So
yeah. Texas is the best.
Yeah.
Best state. Okay, so when did you actually become a Christ follower? What point in your life did that happen?
I was 6 years old. Yeah, I was.
Okay.
I was 6 years old. I was just one of those kids. Every time I did something wrong, I'd tear up and had to go get it right.
That's young.
I know. Yeah, pretty young. Yeah.
You had to get it right. Was that like people-pleasing tendencies?
No, more just like I had a interesting hunger for the Lord at a young age. I was a somewhat sheltered kid growing up, but definitely far, far from perfect and super spiritual. I had issues. So,
what kind of church was your family raising you in?
So, predominantly just like more of a charismatic circle, I would say. Where you might call it full gospel, and then later on into my teen years, I really kind of partnered with more or less non-denominational style churches. So yeah.
Before we started recording, you said something that I wrote down because it's not something I hear a lot of people say. You said that your childhood and your upbringing and who you were as a youth was not impressive.
Yeah.
It was not. So tell me about that. What's not impressive about who you are?
Man, I was such a shy, like awkwardly shy kid, like even into my teenage years. And it's kind of, I could relate to the least of these, if you will, because I felt that way. And I honestly don't know that I ever had a reason to be. It's just like my personality. I was quiet and shy. I've somehow learned to not be that way in my adult years.
Well, especially because you're on stage every Sunday leading a congregation of people. Yeah. And that's not something easy to do for shy people.
Yeah. Oh, no. And in fact, it was terrifying. I remember I actually, I started singing because of a dear friend of mine and a mentor. He was a youth pastor at the time, my youth pastor. And he just kind of reached out to me. I think the Lord kind of put a spotlight in his heart towards me, and he just began to engage with me, and I'm like no one's ever engaged and been interested in me. And so I'm dating myself, but he had a shoebox full of cassette tapes. Yeah. And back then, man, I'm again dating myself. Back then, in churches, you'd have the praise and worship, then you would have the announcements and the offering, and while the offering buckets were being passed, certain singers were scheduled to sing a special. So I would sing like to these cassette tracks. They play them in the back in the sound booth, and they were that lyrics, but it was like Stephen Curtis Chapman songs and like different
Michael W. Smith,
Michael
that
W.
era,
Smith, and so I became. He handed me a shoebox full of those cassette tapes, tracks, and he said, in a month, you're going to be singing, so start practicing.
Wow.
And so like he had never heard me at all. It was just almost like you might call it like a word or a word of knowledge. Yeah. And he just kind of knew in his heart that there was something in me.
Well, but this is crazy though, because that changed the trajectory of your life. Had he not communicated that word to you, who knows? I mean, who knows what you would have end up doing in life? So he identified this in you, and this also speaks to the power of mentorship and calling the gold out of people. Okay, so this mentor identified this in you and basically said, this is what I think God wants you to do. And you just started doing it.
I did, and then one thing led to another. He ended up like a few years after that. He moved to Texas, and he was the reason I kind of came to Texas. He became a dean of students at a Bible college out here, and so I flew out to intern occasionally and that type of thing, and then had more of a deeper encounter with the Lord. But back to what you said is I mean like. His mentorship was everything at the time, and it still is. We still stay in touch, and he's such an encouragement. He's been through a lot, and he knows I've been through a lot. So, but it just goes to your roots. Like, I mean, to not overlook the unassuming and the least of these, because I felt that way whether I was or not. I don't know why I had and I think maybe it was a people-pleasing. Maybe I just I love my dad and wanted to please him so much, or I love my mom and wanted to please them so much. I just had this knack to want to please people, and I just felt like it was never good enough. I was hard on myself at a young age, super hard on myself, and it just caused me internally. And then I had a very weird, dysfunctional family. I mean, I would say there was a very dysfunctional Christian family, not necessarily an amazing example, Like
and so, legalistic kind of?
No, dysfunctional in the sense of maybe a little, not legalistic, but spiritual, but really jacked up.
Okay.
To not go too deep into it, but my family, I mean, the issues with, my dad's side of the family, big issues with lust and just different stuff like that go things that you pull the layers back against.
Human nature.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but at the same time, it's just unique. My dad was abusive towards my mom and my sister in certain ways, but never necessarily towards me, maybe verbally occasionally. But the interesting thing was my dad was the reason that I went to the church that had a mentor that pulled because he decided to take me there, And so it's just you get this jaded, you get spiritual, but at home it's really dysfunctional, just so I guess not seeing the real deal all the time, it was kind of cause you to be disillusioned a little bit.
Well, that's how people get church baggage and church hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Is because it's like what they hear doesn't align with what they see the church doing. And that's unfortunate because the church is made up of a bunch of really, really broken people.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so somehow you still felt, despite everything you had gone through growing up, you felt called to ministry. And so you entered ministry as your full-time profession.
Yes.
How old were you when that happened?
So, I mean, kind of after I finished Bible college in 2004, I went back to help a new church plant in California. So I moved back to California to help a newer church plant. And I would say it was kind of full-time, but I was paid part-time. But it was full-time hours for sure. Yeah. I mean, we were working all the time, and then I had a couple side jobs. And so that kind of started the history. So back then I was just supportive musician and a singer. I wasn't in the spotlight. I just helped my friend who was a worship leader and helped. The pastor was a worship leader. He was on massive stages all over the world at the time. So we just helped him with his church. But it was just more supportive role, and I did that for years. That's why I'm I probably have more history taking a back seat. And even in music and worship than I ever have being a front man, although I do have a history of 20, just about 20 plus years in ministry. So
can I say that's what makes you such an amazing worship leader, is because I know, like, when you're on stage and you're the lead singer and the lead guitarist and you've got the lights on you and everybody's, telling you how great you are, it's really, really easy to fall into that trap of pride.
Yeah.
Where you're like, wow, I am so great. And like we always say at ACF, when pride walks on the stage, the Holy Spirit walks off.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made you such an ideal candidate, is because you were like so much more invested in the people. And you're like, I don't got to lead every song. And that was a pretty good impression. I don't got to lead every song. And I mean, I feel like that's the way worship leaders should be, because it's not about them.
Well, yeah. I mean, I will say, to human nature's defense, not saying obviously we want to flex and know the Lord better and help people worship better, and I want to be a better worshiper. I'm still growing, but flesh is just, pride is just the nature of our flesh. Yeah. Every day we wake up, it stares us in the face, right. But I guess if anything that makes it special is my brokenness. Like I felt like I've been stripped so low and to such a degree that a lot of people don't know, and especially here recently in recent years. But I don't like, there's, it just, that doesn't matter. Like status doesn't matter. Like a position doesn't matter. So, to me, it's just like, I don't know any other way right now. There was probably a season in my life, though, Lauren, to where I was probably a little more routine driven, and it was just kind of like nuts and bolts, just kind of singing the next song. Just the show must go on. Right. Like not saying it was ever a show that was my deep heart, but I kind of lost something, and I think the Lord's sometimes needs to take you through a season to center you again. And even though that, like, literally this last season felt like hell, it was really tough, but I feel like there was a centering and alignment.
Okay, well, that's what I want to get into. As much as you're comfortable sharing, it sounds like this was in the fairly recent history, like last 5 to 10 years. And you reference being broken and kind of hitting rock bottom. Share as much of that as you're comfortable with, but I also want to know, how did you initially respond to that? Did that like make you angry at God? Did it make you want to pull away from God? Go.
I will say, not to get back into this, but I'll say yes to all the above. I'll get into that, but there was such a branding in me at a young age. I just had such an encounter with the Lord that I didn't necessarily want to reject the Lord, but in the dark season, I didn't handle it right. I was angry, frustrated. In fact, that's still that anger towards myself and a little bit of that temper rising up, like it just whatever. I'm not looking to be abusive towards anybody or hurtful towards my family. But I went to a dark place, and sometimes, you dabble a little too much in substance and different stuff like that in the past. And just to cover and mask it up, and mask just the frustration, and obviously that's kind of being surface level on what I actually went through. But
just medicating pain, right? And trying to fill a hole and ease the symptoms more so than address the cause. It's taking care of the symptoms. Like if you don't feel it, that's better than feeling it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we basically what happened is in 2017, I stepped down from ministry and just kind of like, I'm going to figure it out. And the reason, that's because I had a nearly 20-year run in doing worship and youth pastoring and worship leading and worship directing and small churches, big churches, church plants, small rooms, just all kinds, just a variety of different experiences. And then I just knew, I left everything I knew in California to pursue ministry and this grand idea of like, I'm going to go win, you win the world for the Lord, or, or sing to the nations and that type of thing. And it doesn't always happen that way, at least the way we think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so we moved here in 2016, and I assumed a role, and things didn't work out like I thought. So after a year, I stepped down, and I looked at my wife, and I was like, hey, we have moved so much that I'm done moving. We love Austin. We're staying here. So I was just going to figure it out. So I initially went to working for a construction company that delivered doors to job sites. So for about 3 months, I did that. And then we passed a Lifetime Fitness. And I remembered that I had a friend that worked there. So I was like, let me make a phone call. So I did. In 30 minutes, I had a scheduled interview. So I went in and I interviewed, and I got hired on as an assistant manager at first, but I ended up assuming the role for the front of house experience coordinator and member service manager, and then sales, oversaw sales later on. So I did that for about 6 years. But during that time frame, like I had never worked in the corporate world. I was kind of a bubbled, sheltered kid, and you learn a lot. You learn a lot that there's, like, most people mean well, even in the corporate marketplace world. Most people mean well. They just don't know that they're searching,
right.
And that there's more out there. But anyway, during that whole time, it was like a slippery slope. It felt like a slippery slope of hopelessness, because all these dreams and this ministry on the inside of me felt like it was just dying. It wasn't going to happen again. And so it was a crazy season of life. And so that began, that slippery slope of hopelessness just began to spiral. And there was good things that would happen. Like, for instance, I had a lot of family members that had passed away, and a lot of turmoil regarding family and stuff. And my dad ended up passing in 2018. And then my grandfather shortly after that, and with that came an inheritance. And with that inheritance, I went and bought a brand new truck. I don't necessarily recommend that, especially if it's not like an unlimited inheritance. It wasn't necessarily the best decision, but to me, I bought that. It was like a stamp of approval. And then in 2020, I was with my son. We went to the corner store. We were just about to go to Disney World in 2020, January 2020, before COVID hit. This was right before COVID.
Right.
And we were about to go to Disney World like 2 days later. And I was driving my son back. It was like 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, driving back, and we got T-boned. And I had this brand new truck. We thought we had insurance because we had a paper printout.
Yeah.
But then when we went to file the claim, like, nope, you haven't been paying for it. And apparently it wasn't coming out of our bank account. So anyway, I ended up losing that truck, not getting it back. And then there was a couple years there to where life wasn't bad. I was still working at Lifetime, but then things just began to really spiral. Like, struggle in my marriage, and my kids, hearing my kids say things about themselves that no one would want to hear. And then my daughter in 2024 got admitted. It was her birthday in August. Her birthday is August 16th. And on August, we went on Friday, August 15th, we went to take her to Build-A-Bear. And then we took her home after that trip. We took her home after the trip to the mall. And then she just began to break out in these hives and a fever out of nowhere. And the next day, she was getting progressively worse. So we're like, what is going on? We could not figure it out. So we ended up, that evening, she started getting boils all over her body and blisters. And so we were like, what is going on? Her fever it was spiking up. And then that Sunday morning, we took her to the ER, and the ER said, you need to rush her to the emergency room ASAP. So we did. And come to find out, she had this thing called staph scalded skin syndrome, which is 1 in 7 million children could be susceptible to it or get it. So it's a pretty rare.
It's caused by the staphylococcal virus or whatever.
And my son had staph like 3 or 4 months prior, and then I had it like the year before. And staph could linger, I guess.
Yes.
And it's very but we still don't know how she actually got it, but it basically she had like blisters and boils. Her whole body was a giant, just like,
Wow.
and everywhere you touch her, like she was in excruciating pain.
Yeah.
The doctor said if we had waited 24 more hours, she would have died.
Wow. Okay.
And so anyway,
so this is a bad run.
Yeah.
You've had deaths, car accident, no insurance, trying to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Children have health issues.
Yeah.
Trouble in marriage.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounds like a rough go.
So I unloaded a lot there, but
wow.
Yeah. So anyway, but I mean, we had a great support. We had lots of prayers and friends and family from all over and locally supporting us and praying for her. And she's like healthy now. Mm-hmm. Occasionally she'll have a few symptoms. Every time we've had to take her back to the ER a couple of times because she has these weird like allergic reactions sometimes. And so we just get cautious because that was so creepy.
Right.
Prior to that, she had no issues.
Yeah. That's traumatizing too.
Yeah,
it's a traumatizing experience.
And when you're because every time the nurses touched her, like she's in excruciating pain, and when you're having to hold your daughter down so they can do things, and it is the most gut wrenching. And so it's just like this is like God, whatever. Like you're repenting, you're crying your eyes out, you're like, and I think Addison is our daughter. That's our daughter's name, and she was a surprise. So she wasn't planned.
I did notice there's quite an age discrepancy between your older two.
We had two boys, and I'm like, I'm a decent boy dad, that type of thing. I was pretty confident in that, but I feel like I had quit crying and with my boys and lost it. But there's something about when you have a little baby girl that I got that tenderness back that came out of nowhere. So when it felt like your heart was being ripped out of your chest when you see your daughter going through that, so
this is a heavy period that you're walking through at this point in time. When did you? What happened? What was the catalyst that kind of made things start to turn around? Was there like a point of surrender? Like what had to happen before things started looking up?
I at a church I was attending. At the time, I took myself through this twice. Through this, it's a small group, kind of like a Celebrate Recovery thing, but it's called Freedom Groups. So I took myself twice. I was just like, because I know I had issues. I mean, there was internal issues that I had to walk through too. Not to get into detail, but I took myself through that twice, and still felt like I was just. Sludging through like a swamp, it was like an uphill battle. But I was walking through freedom. I was trying to get myself being intentional about getting myself into a community, and being honest and vulnerable, like gut level vulnerable, like nothing. Like you can ask me anything. I mean, it's time to be authentic as possible. Like, so I'd get those type of people in my lives where we just talk about anything in life.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the beginning.
Community.
Yeah, community.
Okay.
That was the beginning to the exodus, if you will. But it still wasn't an easy road. Right. It's still like 2 years later, I'm still growing, and honestly, even as I progress in this role, I'm still growing every day, but I feel like I really experienced freedom in those freedom groups. And that, because, you put yourself in a safe community, you don't just want to regurgitate your faults and failures and everything you've been through, to anybody. You want to be smart about it. But when you put yourself in a safe community that is there for your best interest at heart, that's the best place to be. I mean, because we can't do this on our own.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Even Jesus is not here with us, but Scripture says it is better that he leaves, because if he doesn't leave, then he wouldn't be able to send the Holy Spirit. So he left us with a helper. But I mean, it's just truth and tribute. We not only need the helper internally, but we physically need a community.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because isolation is kind of one of those, that isolation is the place where all that negative stuff kind of grows.
And I would say hopelessness was a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But isolation wasn't the cause, but that's the hardest place to be, is in that state of isolation. And I literally felt like for a season there, a few years, we were just on a desert island. I was alone and hopeless with these huge dreams and what I want to do for the Lord. And I felt like it was all gone. And so you get depressed, you get isolated, and some people might say, I've never been a depressed day in my life. I'm not a depressed type personality, and I get it, man. But for those that have been there, woo,
it's
because you see no light at the end of the tunnel.
And that's what really separates like being depressed from like being sad. Like depressed, you're like, this is the way my state of mind is always going to be. It's never going to improve beyond this. But today, you are in a better place.
Yes.
And wait, what do you credit that to? Like you just said the first step was community, like Christian community. Like what else had to happen to get you kind of out of that hole?
I think I just got so desperate that I began to ask the Lord, because everyone wants the next best thing, the brightest, the greatest. They think that's their breakthrough to their next opportunity, the most money in my bank account, the most. And I just began to just like, Lord, I don't know what else to do. Because I went for a season there, I stepped down from Lifetime and I pursued insurance. That drastically failed. And then I had a hard time getting back to work, finding work. So I just there's a season there where I was like, Lord, I don't know what else to do other than if you can just please send the most unassuming position, the most unassuming job, I'll say yes. And I'll look for not the title or position. I'll do what's unassuming. I'll stick to it. And so, like, I think, and here lately the Lord's dealt with me is like, I don't care where the Lord leads me. Even if it's on the back of a hill, everyone wants that bright, shining thing. But even if it's on the back of the hill, because if he leads me to the back of the hill, that's where his presence is going to be for me personally.
Yeah.
And so I just got desperate. I'm like, God, where your presence is where your breakthrough is, Lord. Yeah. So whatever's unassuming. And so there was little things like I had a good friend reach out to me, and I was driving around in the back seat of his truck, like from we were installing awnings and then I was like, okay, I need more income. So I was like, I guess I'm going to work at Home Depot. I did that. And some people are like, that's like, they can make a career out of Home Depot. And some people are like, that's their lowest of lows. And I was unloading box trucks at night. And then I was like, I worked construction for a year and a half. So I was just like, whatever it is, God, I'll just do it. Like, it doesn't have to be the thing. It's crazy. I started from being very non-impressive as a child to begging God for the most unassuming roles to lead me out. And so I think it just boils down to, how do you get out of that? You got to be willing to pray the hard prayers, because it's like, it's not comfortable, like staying, and it was like a duration of like nearly 2 years that I was like staying in an unassuming, like no one's noticing this, but sticking to it, especially when you have big dreams in your heart.
Yeah. But if that's where God has you, he knows that's what's going to ultimately make you flourish in the long run. It's a step in the plan that you can't skip. Because if he had given you this stage, this mega church, and these albums you were writing, like you would have missed that whole process of being broken and then being put back together again. Yeah. And I know we've gone a little bit over on this episode, but I think your story is fascinating. What would you say is the one thing that you want people to take away from this?
That no matter where you're at in life, just know that the Lord is faithful. But we do have to sometimes make those tough decisions, and we have to make those tough decisions. We have to get up and find a community. We have to get up and motivate ourselves to continually attend a church. I would say, like, going to church is not the answer, but being a part of a community in the church, a life-giving, word-centric community that is going to encourage you and not judge you, is so vitally important. And I also began to pray for divine connections and divine relationships. And I honestly would say probably in this last 5 to 6 months, the Lord has put a few people in my life specifically that it's one of those things, they were going through hell and I was like coming out of my hell. And brothers are made in the trenches.
Right.
So like that, like honestly, brothers aren't made just by going to church and saying the Christianese thing, not to be despairingly or dogmatic towards, people, well-meaning people. But brothers are made in the battle in the trenches, and you it's hard to say we're brothers when we haven't walked in the trenches together. So that's not to be discouraging, because you can't be in the trenches with everybody. You know what I'm saying? But the Lord will place certain people in your life, and so there's a few just key relationships that the Lord's brought that really have been gifts. So I would say pray the hard prayers, find a community. And honestly, even begin to beg, cry out to the Lord for, I would say, just divine connections, just God-centered, God-divine, orchestrated relationships. And I promise you, He will see you through.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing all this. You're relatively new to ACF, and I know our folks want to know more about you and know your backstory, and that's an incredible one. I didn't know any of this walking into it, so I'm learning all of it for the first time, just like everybody else. But thank you. Thank you for vulnerability.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And guys, I want to encourage you, if you have any other questions for Brian, or if you want to know more about his story, or if you have any questions about how to get through what you're walking through, you can go ahead and send those to us at acfellowship.org/podcast. There's a comment form there. It's anonymous. You can leave your name in there if you would like, but we really do want to hear from you. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, go ahead and rate this so that other people can find us, and hopefully people can find hope through the stories that we're presenting that point people back to Jesus Christ. So thank you for joining us. Thank you again, Brian, and we'll see you guys on an episode next week.